Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The Las Vegas Legion have confirmed their roster for CDL 2023. They actually made an announcement video, can you believe it? But Clayster not retiring, back for at least one more season. Will this be his last season? Loads of reaction from around the professional community. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss. Firstly, on the New York Subliners side, of course, we know Kismet, Hydra, they're going to be there. Skies and Priester got confirmed just yesterday. But they also confirmed, along with their coaching staff, of course, with Cinder joining, that Wardy will be here as their substitute. Really interesting situation here because the two star players, really, from the European Challenger scene, and of course, the European Challenger scene has produced a lot of gems in the last few years that have gone into top North American teams. Wardy and Beans were those two fellas. And Wardy is going to join here as their fifth man. Interesting stuff just because Wardy, I think, had either an offer from London or they either wanted Wardy or maybe they couldn't offer enough money or whatever the situation was. You'd think he'd be on a minimum salary here for the Subliners anyway. But there was some talk that he actually rejected the London offer to go and play for New York on their bench, even if he could have been starting for London. So definitely a strange one because London don't seem to have the greatest of reputations among a lot of the pro players, such that Wardy might have even kind of rejected one of the offers from the London team, even if it was a sub offer from London to be the sub for New York. I honestly don't mind this at all, but it's interesting just because Wardy's an SMG player, very talented in that role. But you've got Kismet, you've got Hydra. That's not really where I expect changes to be made here with the Subliners team. So definitely opens up some room for maneuver for them going forwards, but excited to see Wardy get his shot to some degree, just because Bean's also a player on the Boston Breach Academy on the bench for the Boston team going forwards. He's more in that kind of AR role, so he's more of a flex player, so potentially the Methods Awakening role could be up for grabs there. But London managed to miss out on both of these players, and of course they're going to get, we believe, Paulex, Asim, it's Zero and Nasty as the rest of the team. Pretty much everything else now has been confirmed. Now, of course, we saw yesterday that London are getting bought out or have been acquired effectively by that coy kind of Spanish group of, Twitch streamers that have now created a really successful organization in the last year or so, and even Royal Ravens kind of hinted that exactly here. So just goes to show we don't know what the future is with London as a result of this, but yeah, clearly the future might not be for this team built around UK talent and players, and we'll never really know probably what the offers looked like from London going elsewhere, but the fact that neither Wardy nor Beans have ended up on London for the upcoming season, even in a substitute role, is to me somewhat surprising. So I do think New York have done a relatively good thing. They've got some good talent on their team, they've got a good coaching staff ready to go. Whether they'll be able to translate that into results, who knows? I think a lot of people are expecting, given the other teams that are formed, it to be something of a Subliners versus Boston battle to make the final spot of the World Championship, but of course last season went not exactly in the way that many would have predicted, so it could be a similar thing this time around. But look, there are many substitutes, very talented players from the Challenger scene. Few of them are getting a spot right to the start of the season. Scrappy, Vickle, some examples there. And Wardy and Beans were kind of in that caliber of players, but more in the European side. They won't quite get the starting spot for now. Let's talk about Vegas then. So here we go. This is honestly mind-blowing to me. They actually did an announcement video. I don't know if they've ever done one of these before in Paris's history. This may have been like a corner turned here for Vegas. And honestly, having seen this, I do want to root for this team this year. These guys have a massive chip on their shoulder, pretty much all of these players, to prove the community wrong to a certain extent. They're certainly going to have to do that if they want to have any success this season. And look, it might be a three-way battle between Vegas, Florida, and London for the worst team in the CDL. But I definitely think there is some upside here. And they actually paid a graphics designer, or they have one in-house, to make them a cool announcement video. And even Dotty tempted the voiceover for this. And he was saying some cool things that sounded good. So, you know, it was hyping up the team to some degree. This is then the roster. So Clayster and Temp, that's the AR duo. Temp, of course, is going to stay. Clay returning as the AR. And then TJ and Prolute on the SMGs. TJ back to an SMG, certainly a player that Temp has wanted to play with again for a little bit of time. Played together on the Los Angeles Thieves team a couple of years ago now. I think Temp's wanted TJ back, but has wanted TJ on the SMG. And then Prolute, who generally has favoured the SMG last season, of course, subbed in for the OpTic Texas team in a surprise set of circumstances. There he was in the flex role, of course. Now he's going to be on effectively the full-time sub. Clay back as the AR. I think the good thing here for Clay to some degree, and I think that some teams are kind of figured figured this out is that, look, young talent is good, Prolute is kind of fits into that category to some degree, but also Clay had a really difficult time on the New York Subliners, especially in Cold War, and even I'm sure like his last season as well wasn't ideal. Also, dealing with guys like Neptune and kind of maybe even Asim to some degree when he was a bit younger in Cold War, and struggling to kind of deal with the personalities that aren't so experienced in the CDL. Clay can maybe deal with as the IGL of a team, having one, maybe two rookies on a team, but I think Clay thought that especially during Cold War where he had Hydra, you know, Diamond Con, Asim, these type of guys, Asim had a couple of years experience under his belt at that point, but I think Clay was really struggling as the IGL to really, like, you know, help these guys develop and be the best version of himself. So I feel like for the final year of his career, what could be the final year of his career, or at least the final couple, he's probably more happy to go for players that are more veterans, they're more experienced, he doesn't really have to teach them that much, solid players, and if they mesh, they can do rather well, because the competitiveness of this league, of course, is really rather high. So I'll talk about the SMG duo first. Firstly, here from Prolute, time to show the world what we can do from the beginning this time. Excited to get the season started with this squad. So this is the interesting thing for Prolute, right? He was in that flex role for OpTic, did a good job early on, great search and destroy player, held his own, I thought, in the respawns. As the flex, it didn't seem like the SMGs were quite so comfortable with Prolute as they were with iLLeY, of course, but still, Prolute had really high recommendations from that OpTic team. They all said he was a fantastic teammate, like iLLeY 2.0, they called him, or whatever, and his kind of preferred role is probably to run the SMG, but can be in that flex position if needed, like, of course, Temp is pretty much going to run on this roster. But still, Prolute as the SMG is definitely interesting. I do think that there's some upside to this potential move, and the OpTic guys were full of praise for Prolute in his kind of teamwork and the chemistry that he brings and his kind of ability to grind the game, and that is one of the kind of positive aspects I think for this team early on, is that Clayster is usually a pretty good early adopter. Early in cycles, he gets a good idea what the meta's going to be, and is pretty good at the start of games historically. Prolute, as a bit of a grinder player as well, is going to be in a similar boat. Now, like, everyone obviously is going to be grinding at the start of the game. That's not a surprise, but some players start off well, some players sometimes don't, and then get better as the season progresses. So the Prolute thing is pretty cool. Now, the TJ thing to me is the big question mark, though. So I don't mind having Prolute as, you know, one of the SMGs on the roster. No issues there for me on that one. I think it's a sensible decision. The TJ one is like, look, people are going to say, how has TJ managed to finesse himself another spot in the league for one more year? TJ's been a player that pretty much his career has been declining every year since World War II. You know, great player when he came onto the scene back in Advanced Warfare. Then once he was back in Call of Duty, I mean, World War II was kind of his peak on that Rise Nation team. Every year since then, the OpTic team in 2019, then going into franchising, has like effectively just been worse and worse. Even Los Angeles Thieves at the start was okay, then it kind of fell off. Last season wasn't good at all either. He had some moments, I suppose, with the Boston Breach, but that was in the flex role. Now he's going back to the SMG, where he used to start his career effectively, at least in the World War II days where he was so strong. And it's strange, because T2 was such a good player a few years ago, and the last couple of seasons just hasn't been anywhere near as impactful. So this, to me, I mean, I think for a lot of these guys, it's kind of like, it's do or die, really, at this point. If Clay doesn't turn up this season, if TJ doesn't turn up, with Prolute as well, like, they will go back to challenges or just straight up retire. And like, TJ's still young. I think he's still only like 24 or so, which is just mind-blowing to me. Like, he's still got potentially a long career ahead of him. So this is a big season, I think, for TJ back in the SMG, where I suppose he wants to be, to do a Kenny and try and really deliver some good results this season. Because if he doesn't, I feel like his spot is probably the most up for change here, because he's probably going to have to be the guy to do a lot of the SMG slaying, right? So that's where my big questions lie. As he says, time to prove a lot of people wrong. I guess, you know, myself and I'm sure a lot of the community included here, not convinced yet if TJ's quite got what it takes at this point of his career to be the star SMG they need. But look, if he proves us wrong, that'd be a great story as well. So I mean, yeah, obviously in the replies here, Arcitys says you're a beast, brother, congrats. So yeah, interesting team for sure. What do you think the potential of this squad is? I think that a lot of teams in the CDL do have relatively decent potential, but again, I've said this before with this roster, the Clay thing is kind of nice. I like bringing in Clay with these guys, pretty good at the start of titles. Clay, again, has got a fair bit to prove also, but from the Clay perspective, what do you guys think about this from kind of a pressure angle, right? Even as a tactist here, let's get it, Clay, back in the CDL for one more year, and he will actually be the first player, Clayster, to play a CDL match at the age of 30, if he does play one, right? If the season begins and he does play one, as of course we would think he would, he's literally in the roster, then he will be the first ever pro player to play at 30, which is pretty cool. So what do you think from Clay's side? Is it kind of like, look, he's had his career, he's won his 3 world championships, he's going to get another spot in the CDL here to last out 1, maybe 2 more seasons, depending on how he performs, but it's also like, you know, pressure thing. Is the pressure off him to say, you know, one more ride here on the Vegas Legion for the new season, try and build them up a little bit as a brand, I suppose? And, you know, I'm kind of rooting for this team, honestly, next season, especially because they made an announcement video. I'm kind no doubt for this team to prove a lot of people wrong and be better than maybe even I would expect them to be? Or is the pressure on Clay to be like, well, look, Clay's got to perform this season. If he doesn't, that's it. That's retirement kind of coming up just around the corner. And I'd love to see Clay perform well, because if he does, he could stay around a bit longer than just the one more season than maybe we expect. But of course, if the team does well, like, he'll probably have good reason to stay around even longer than that. As he goes on to say here, last year was insanely challenging with the whole New York drama. I think I still have what it takes to win a couple more, and I plan on showing everyone that this year. Excited for the season to begin. Gonna try my best to make it a good one. So great stuff from Clay. Really happy for him to get another spot back here. I didn't want to see Crim and Clay retire in the same season. That would have been absolutely tragic. One of the other concerns though I do have with this team, and I was just thinking about the Search and Destroy, and the Search should be okay with Prelude and stuff, and TJ as well. Search and Destroy should potentially be a positive suit for these guys. But also, like, what do we think about the chemistry on this team? There's some big personalities on this roster. Clayster and Temp, I don't know if Clay and Temp have teamed before. It's a situation that can either work rather well, with, you know, two big personalities that, you know, either they'll butt heads to some degree, but at the same time, like, if things go well, then, you know, it could be actually a really good environment, right? Sometimes it works out like that. You've got big personalities. Sometimes it works very well. Sometimes it works terribly. I mean, look, we saw this last season with Clay and Crimsix. Very quickly, that AR relationship broke down despite all the history that they had. So, you know, you wouldn't be surprised if there are some, you know, Clayster and Temp arguments behind the scenes. They might not, Vegas, have quite the coaching staff on the same level that maybe New York are trying to build now, where they can really mediate some of those discussions. I think they've just got theory over there at Vegas, and we saw kind of what happened with a single coach relationship with Riven back on the Subliners team in Cold War, where, you know, the argument was that Riven didn't really do much to stop Clay bickering with the rest of the team, and the team effectively just devolved into chaos towards the end of the season. Would you expect that to happen here with Clay and Temp? Because, you know, big personalities, they're going to have their own opinions. If things go badly wrong, like, you know, potential issues that Clay has had on teams in the past are not exactly going to go away. So to me, I think this team is really just fighting to make it through to the World Championship, to be honest. As I say, the SMG duo, I'm not so sure about. I think that Clayster can still be a very respectable AR. I'd love to see him really perform well this season, because he was great at the start of Cold War. Obviously, last season was terrible, but, you know, the likes of Slasher now, he's still 28, going on almost getting to 30 as well. And as Slasher even said here, well, now I'm no longer the oldest player in the league. Welcome back, old man Clayster, right? So it's good to see, really. And, you know, Slasher's only a couple of years. Clayster's junior, and Slasher's still playing well. So I think there's more gas in the tank left for Clayster. But if Thieves' team doesn't work out, even if Clay individually is quite good, then they'll have to do something right. And to be honest, I would be highly surprised if this team with this SMG duo makes it through to the end of the season. But definitely intrigued to your thoughts on that one in the comment section below. Just one thing to finish out with here from none other than Simp the Sick Joke. His top 4 CODs of all time. I believe this is just the CODs that he's actually played. He doesn't even put Black Ops 2 on it, because I guess he was still way too young for that one. But yeah, Black Ops 3 first. I will always support any list that has Black Ops 3 first. Then Black Ops 4. Then Cold War on his 3rd of all-time CODs. I mean, I'm not really surprised that Simp says this, considering that I would absolutely ridiculously good he was at that game. But still, I mean, Cold War 3rd of all-time COD list I thought was a little bit outrageous. Even Black Ops 4 2nd is kind of up there. And then Advanced Warfare 4th, which I don't really mind. But yeah, the Cold War one. Cold War was a solid game, don't get me wrong, but it's not a top 3 COD of all time, in my humble opinion. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.